Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Pete, Films and Stuff. Time for my favorite 1 hour of the week. You know what that means.
I do. It means, Ethan, that we are going to be talking about... Oh, I was about to say Game of Thrones, but really I mean House of the Dragons. Although, you did watch the first season of Game of Thrones again.
I did. So, historical spoiler alert.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we're at the penultimate episode of House of the Dragon, and it's been 10 years, 11 years since the first season of Game of Thrones, right?
Has it only been 10 years?
It's been 8 seasons. It was 8 seasons, right?
Yeah. And what was the gap? I thought the gap was more than 2 years.
Oh, yeah, maybe. So, like 12 years, do you think? 11? Long time. Close to a decade,
I'll tell you,
at least.
We were watching the 7th season when you and I went to Zimbabwe.
Oh, my gosh. It's like 15. So that
was 2015.
No.
Yeah, 2015 or 2016.
Yeah, 2016. I ask like you're so far off and it's only 1 year. So 2016, so 2017 was the 8th season. So that was 5 years ago.
5 years ago, yeah. So 15 years ago. Holy cow.
Yeah.
No, sorry, 13 years ago.
Yeah. All right. So 13 years ago, I watched all of season 1 this year, and I watched it this week, and I watched it for a few reasons. I felt like when I started Game of Thrones, obviously I didn't know anything about it. I didn't read the books. I didn't know the lore. So the way that I caught up with it was, or the way that I watched it was very casual. And I thought it was really important this week because this week, and we'll get into the details, real-time spoiler alert, we know that now the shit's gone down and Alicent has made her move, right?
Yep, she's lied.
Yes.
Well, not her first, but she is. This is the first time we've seen her make a politically bold maneuver by flat out lying to everybody and their mother.
Yep. And what it made me think of, and I was really fuzzy on it, was season 1, where Ned Stark was a hand of the king in King's Landing, and it was Robert Baratheon who was the king, married to Cersei
Lannister. Yeah.
And remember, there's a whole lot of drama after Robert died. He was gored by a boar or something. The throne was supposed to pass to his son, King Joffrey, which eventually it did. And Ned was beheaded on the basis that he called out that Joffrey was a bastard, not the rightful heir to the throne. And he based it on the fact that Joffrey had blonde hair, right? And he was the incestual love child of Cersei and
Jaime
Lannister, right? And not the rightful heir to the throne. And instead, Ned thought that it should be Stannis Baratheon, who, as we know, had that crazy advisor, the lady in red who worshipped the fire and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And there was a time when Baratheon's son, remember, who was having an affair with a squire, came to Ned and said, hey, I've got like a guard of 50 people. I'm actually the real next in line. You know, it's not Joffrey. Stannis is a bad dude and his brother. Like, now's the time that we should make our move, get rid of the Lannisters, who you know are no good, install me as the king, you be my hand, and together, like, we know how to do this. And that was Ned Stark's not only downfall, but it really changed the course of everything that we've seen in Game of Thrones, because that probably was A, the rightful heir to the throne, and B, probably would have been a much better team to govern. We know that Joffrey was a disaster, and we know everything else, that went badly after that for 8 seasons, right? So this is kind of like that was the fork in the road, right? And Ned had to make a decision, and obviously he got the whole thing wrong. I mean,
Clearly.
he ruined everything, right? I mean, he got his wife killed, he got his sons killed, he got killed, blah, 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 blah. Here, Alicent is calling her shot. So I think we should not minimize the significance that this is going to have for everyone, right?
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right.
It cannot be understated. It cannot be understated.
Her lie is going to lead to the downfall of the Targaryens, so her family. And I don't remember if the Hightowers as a family even exist or have any prominence in Game of Thrones. I don't remember.
I have not seen so far. In
any case, her lie basically leads to the destruction of everything, right? The Valyrians are gone. The Targaryens are gone, more or less. And maybe the Hightowers are gone. I don't know. But that's because of her. All this will happen because of her.
Dragons are gone? Kind of.
Dragons are gone. Yes, theoretically. Yeah, I think... well, look. Okay, so maybe we're being also a little harsh. We don't know how this season, or not just the season, but this series will end. Yeah. In the sense that we do know that Baratheon, in the first show, in the first season, he gets to become king because he kills a Targaryen. Right? He kills the Mad King, if I remember correctly. Don't hold me to it. I haven't seen it. So
that's correct.
Right? Yep. So he, like, that was the whole point, was that Ned was his best friend and the two of them banded together along with all the other houses to kill the Targaryens. And that's how he becomes king, which means the Targaryen line actually, I think that, now that I'm thinking about it, actually, that means that whatever happens in House of the Dragons, the Targaryens are going to continue.
I mean, it's just which branch of the tree. Which branch,
correct. Yeah. Yes. I don't know why, this is a faulty assumption I was making. I thought by the end of this series of House of the Dragon in general, none of the Targaryens would survive, but that's incorrect. Two of them would get stowed away on Essos, which is Daenerys and Viserys, but the other Targaryens are going to continue, and from what we know, they are pure Targaryens, right? They're not bastards.
As far as we know.
We definitely know that Daenerys is. Mm-hmm. You're right. Actually, we don't know what the guy...
Her brother seems not to be a pure Targaryen, because remember, Daenerys says, and this is something that's really great about watching Game of Thrones now, is that Daenerys says more than once, fire can't burn a real dragon, or something like that, right? And she survives fire. She touches things on fire and doesn't get burned. And her brother dies.
But he pours the molten pot of gold on his head, right?
Yeah.
Because he wanted a crown of gold.
Yeah. But Daenerys says, fire can't burn dragons. The implication is, and then she says, he wasn't a real dragon. Anyway, it's not clear whether or not he's a bastard or whether they're brother and sister are once removed, but that's the implication. So here Alicent calls her shot, but before we get there, you said she lies. Is it confirmed that she lies or that she misunderstands Viserys' deathbed rumblings, kind of talking about the wall?
Yeah, okay. So maybe
that's a generous interpretation, but she kind of like interprets it the way that she wants.
Yeah, I think it's probably a healthy mix of both. I think she probably knows that he doesn't want Aegon to be king.
Yeah.
But she also takes his prophecy confusion in a different way, especially now that she's in this religious fervor herself. Mm-hmm. So it's probably a mix of both. But ultimately, the difference is she acts on it with reckless abandon. So going so far as to get... And actually, we'll get into this, and this is a question I had for you because I didn't understand it.
Yes.
So, going so far as to get her dad on her side, which of course he always was, and going so far as to approving the elimination of all her enemies. And by her enemies, I mean the the people who weren't happy with the fact that she nominated Aegon alone with no witnesses, especially when everyone, and say what you will, Viserys though was consistent about one thing. To everybody he spoke to, he said Rhaenyra is going to be the successor, period. He stamped his foot on that multiple times in public to everybody. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, of course, everyone would be like, wait, it's a bit suspicious that when he dies, he told you and you alone. I think that's total bullshit. And when people get called out about it, that poor guy got killed, right? Because Cole is an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, but this is, I think, what Alicent does wrong. If you're going to go with it, you've got to go all the way.
All the way. You can't.
And then she says, hey, let's make a nice off. I mean, I wish the world worked this way, right? She says, hey, let's make Rhaenyra a fair offer.
A real offer.
Let's treat her right. Her dad wouldn't have wanted her killed. I'm not going to kill her. You know what? Bless her heart. That's the right way to think about it. But again, this is Game of Thrones. Yeah. Maybe not Game of Thrones, but it's the Game of Thrones. You've got to choose. If you're going to choose this, you've got to be ruthless. Do it 100%. Get rid of your enemies. Yeah. And whatever is written in history will then become fact. Yeah, if you're not willing to do that, don't be surprised when it doesn't go smoothly.
Yeah, at this point, the old saying is in for a penny, in for a pound. You are in it. You've already committed an act of murder by getting Larys to kill his father and his brother. It's already done.
I agree.
You can't take that back now.
I agree.
And so if you've already taken that one step too far, and if that's not the kind of person you want to be, you should have been like, oh, hands up, this is not what I wanted. I did it. My bad. Right? I'm out. That's the point. You can't then kind of wash it over and then be, like, oh, no, she was still my best friend as a kid, blah, blah, blah. Especially after they had what seemed to be a touching, maybe not a peace, but at that dinner table scene last time where she was like, let me take the children home. I'll come back to you. We can talk about this on Dragonback. It seemed like they were setting up for some kind of grand reunification. And I thought, my initial thought was that, Otto's not going to be happy about that, and he's going to try to make a move on his own without her blessing. But instead, she went and did it again herself. So here's the question I have for you, okay? I get it. Otto is killing everybody that's opposed to them. I'm in. It makes total sense. He's in it, and he understands how this game really works. So if there's going to be any houses that are going to go against him, he's going to kill them and install his own puppets in there. That makes perfect sense. It's kind of what they've done in the King's Council already. Fine, no problem. I did not fully understand the motivations of what was going on with Aegon, because it looked like Otto was chasing after Aegon on his own accord or had him kidnapped, and then it looked like Aemond and Cole at Alicent's behest were also looking for Aegon, but it looked like it was a race, right? It didn't look like they were working together.
I've got the answer for you. I've got the answer. It's very subtle.
Thank God, because I did not understand.
So Otto wanted to get him first because he wanted to say, you're the king. You've got to make a command to kill Rhaenyra and Daemon. Alicent wanted to capture him first because she wanted him to say, hey, you're king, but do not kill Rhaenyra and Daemon. It was super subtle, and I agree. It was a lot of manufactured drama because, in theory, they were on the same side.
Oh,
That's the only distinction I can come up with.
Okay.
But I agree. It was the amazing race, very, very low stakes.
And who orchestrated the kidnap?
What kidnap?
Aegon's kidnap. Remember, because he was basically taken away, right? Like he was hiding in that, or he was being hidden in that church by the two brothers.
Apparently, I guess he was just kind of like hiding. Like he was really weird at the beginning. I agree that whole thing was a little bit fuzzy overall. But what I got was that they finally brought him back to the Red Keep, and then he was just kind of like hiding, and he was like kind of drunk, kind of wasted, and he's like, "Hey, I just don't want to be king."
That I got. I thought that was a great scene where he's in the carriage.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, listen, I know I'm useless. I don't want to be king. Yeah. Which I think is also a brilliant and more subtle way of putting Aemond back in the mix, right? Because
I thought for a while, I thought Aemond was going to kill him.
Yeah. Especially after that sequence, I thought what was going to happen was I thought Aemond was going to stab him or kill him subtly and then pin that on Rhaenyra.
That's what I thought the race was about at first. I thought Aemond was going to say to Cole, "You know I'm stronger. I'll put you as head of the King's Guard or whatever." And he was just going to kill the guy. And it was the two brothers, Eric and Eric, one with an E, one with an A, right?
Yeah,
they were trying to protect him. But I really thought that Aemond was gonna like kill him, and then he'd be like, "Look, Alicent, ha ha ha, this is your choice now. It's got to be me." And Alicent was already going to be forced to live with that decision.
I was under the impression that the woman that Otto has been paying on the side, you remember Daemon's girlfriend from the first season, first episode?
Yeah. Mysaris or whatever her name is.
Whatever her name is. The one who's this show's version of Stannis Baratheon's.
Yeah.
No, because she also dabbles in magic, right?
Yes, it seems like it. Yeah.
That was my feeling. So the redheaded lady from I cannot remember for the name of for the life of me. Myceria, maybe? I can't remember.
Yeah. So something like that.
My understanding was, or my feeling was, that it looked like Otto was working, or she was working for him, right? Because he was giving her money or something like that. And she was the one who made the comment, "We give you the power you have is the power we give you. And don't forget that." Right? Yeah. Because I guess like if all of the people rebelled, the kingdom wouldn't really exist, I guess.
Yeah.
I got a bit confused. I thought she had held Aegon. I thought she was the one who had kidnapped him at Otto's behest, but then turned on him and kept him hidden. But I wasn't clear. And again, not sure why. It didn't make sense to me. But what you've just said clears up at least 95%.
She seemed to know where Aegon was like brotheled up, right? And she seemed to say like, "Hey, I know where he is, but you've got to pay me for me to tell you where he is."
Right.
And Otto was kind of like, "Hey, like, I'll pay you, otherwise I'll just kill you. Either way, you're going to tell me where the dude is, you know?"
Yeah.
That gets to another kind of interesting point, which is you mentioned Larys, right?
Oh, I mean, ending sequence was so creepy and disgusting. And like, I wanted to reach through my screen and punch him in the face. And Alicent is and like immediately it took away any of the power Alicent gained in this episode, disappeared in a flash because of that last scene.
Oh man. I thought that was one of the better. I mean, first of all, it was really, I think there's not a lot that can surprise us. And that was, I thought, a good surprise. I never would have saw that coming.
Not at all.
And it also demonstrates Alicent's, for me, what's so endearing about Alicent is that she does what she knows needs to be done. Even the entire time she's disgusted by it. Yep. You see her kind of like,
looking away with the stocking,
looking away, and she's like, I can't even believe I'm doing this. But she's still she wasn't even asked. She just knew like what the transactional price was, you know. And for me, that's like such a low price. Yeah, like take off your socks. Like
it's not just that. It's just She's lost a lot, in my eyes, a lot of the respect I gained from her gaining the upper hand over her father disappeared, especially because she also, like 10 minutes earlier in the episode, spent time trying to convince Rhaena, trying to convince Rhaena that to back her play for the throne. And then where Rhaena kind of rebuffs her and says, hey, haven't you thought about the fact that it should be you on the throne and not your son? Like, dream bigger, basically, is what she was saying. Or at least that's the way I took it. You know, she was being kind of held hostage there until everything was done because they didn't want any issues with the coronation. Because they fast-tracked that. He dies, and then the next day, Aegon is named king. Like, they fast-tracked that coronation very, very fast.
So, yeah.
I don't know.
So you're talking about, like, Corlys's wife, right? Rhaenys.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it is Rhaenys, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that gets us, I mean, for me, the big ending scene, right? Usually when you have the penultimate episode, there's supposed to be something major that happens, you know, at the end of that episode. I thought this was a little bit, not disappointing, but anticlimactic. What do you think? Like she creeps down into whatever the dragon place is.
Yeah, into the dragon pit. Yeah.
She
gets
puts
her
on
armor,
her,
first of all.
Puts her armor.
What
right?
badass armor. She looked
badass
amazing.
Armor.
Amazing.
She blows through the ground, gets her dragon to do some roaring. But this is where I don't get her
thought process. Yeah. I'm with you. So this is where you know the reasons they're doing the things they're doing is for the purpose of the show, not for the purpose of the story. Because any sane person in that position would have screamed out Dracarys and in a single blow wiped out that entire branch because everybody was on stage. Aegon, his wife, his mother, the king's hand, and Aemond. All 5 of them were on stage at the same time.
I agree.
One fireball would have killed all of them. In terms of story, in terms of practical sanity check, if you and I were on that dragon, that would have 100% been the right move because at this point, Rhaenys is never going to be queen. What this does, though, is this sets her up to ingratiate herself very well with her brother Daemon, who is now going to be on the throne, along with Rhaenyra, her niece. It sets up
Daemon's her nephew, right? Yeah. No, is Daemon her brother?
Must be because she's Viserys' sister as well, right? So
You're right. But this is what I don't like. I agree with you. The scene doesn't make sense, and I think it should have gone one of two ways. She should have obliterated everybody on that stage right there, and she should have taken control. Or all the people after her dragon busted through the floor, then they should have all somehow found like a secret, I don't know how this would work, a secret passageway or ducked down or something, and avoided the attempted assassination. It should have been one of those two, but I agree, for her to just do the roar and then fly out, I thought was...
Let me give you a third alternative. They do the roar with the fire. Alicent is gone. Father is gone. And the 3 Targaryens are still alive because they're immune to fire.
Oh.
And then have Pete. A real...
Can I just say, I'm slow clapping. I'm slow clapping on my head. That was really good.
Because then you can say, hey, you want proof that I deserve to be on the throne? A dragon wasn't able to burn me down.
100%.
I am 100% Targaryen blood. Yep. And let's put your feet to the fire. Let's put your bastard children in front of a dragon. Would they survive? And of course they wouldn't.
You are absolutely right.
And then you set up multiple seasons because we've already agreed that ultimately, at some point, this is not going to be about Rhaenyra and Alicent. Especially over 5 seasons, it's too long. It's got to be about Aegon and Aemond versus the children, right? It has to be about the grandchildren and so forth.
I agree. It would have been amazing that you just see the fire and you're like, they're dead. And then Aemond and Aegon get up.
And Helena, all 3 of them get up.
Yes. And then it's like really war.
Then
but I agree.
It's real war.
Just the getting the dragon a shout and flying off, I thought that was unnecessary theatrics. I thought it didn't make sense strategically. And even like, and also like, I always think of the carnage, but like a lot of people probably died in there, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like how is that better for her family, for Rhaenyra, for Daemon? Like
it's
all
because
that.
they don't care, but nobody really cares about that because they're all lords, right? They're all lords and kings and queens of their own empires. So
I
for
guess.
them, they wouldn't give a shit about the quote unquote peasants that work for them.
But that's kind of the opposite of what Daemon said to Rhaenyra once, right? Rhaenyra's like, hey, I don't care what people think. And Daemon's like, dude, like,
our power comes from it. And that's exactly what Myceria or whatever that lady says to Otto as well. That's my point, is that also then sets up wonderfully that, well, if Rhaenyra comes back, well, your aunt killed my cousin. Why would I ever follow you? You know, like all of these things, it sets up
I have to say,
angles.
Pete, you just, of all your ideas over the past 119 episodes, I'm not kidding. That was exceptional. That would have been a way better way to do it. Because I was waiting for something big to happen.
Yeah.
When nothing happened, I was just like, hold on. What was the point of all of that?
This was, for me,
like, are you flexing your power? Because there's no power.
Exactly.
But they've got the same dragon. Like, it wasn't like, oh no, she's got a dragon. We've got to be on best behavior. The two brothers, right, Aemond and Aegon, are like, hey, we've got dragons as well.
Yeah.
We're not afraid of you. Like, we've got two, you've got one. What's the big deal? Yeah. You know? Ugh. I thought that was very disappointing.
At some point, there's going to be a play on the dragon eggs as well, because we've seen they specifically made a point of Daemon going out and finding a clutch of eggs.
Yeah.
At some point, there's going to be a play for more eggs somewhere. So that's going to be, it has to be, because that's going to be the power play, right? Is the more dragons you have, like I will take one dragon over 1,000 troops any day. And that's effectively what's going to happen.
Episode 10 is coming now tomorrow. That's the last one of the season, right?
Yes.
Give me your predictions.
I think Rhaenyra and Daemon come back in a big way, because this episode, they weren't mentioned at all. We didn't even see them. They were mentioned insofar as a throwaway. We're going to make her a real offer, and that's kind of it. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be the episode where they make a play, and they make such a powerful play that Alicent then throws all caution to the winds and says, oh, it's on. Forget about it. Episode 9 was the prelude to the war and kind of set up the teams. And I think episode 10 is going to really go for it. We'll see over the coming seasons, I imagine. There'll be some diplomacy, as in people will try to get the different houses on the different sides of the Targaryens. But this is basically going to be just like a civil war.
Let me throw out a few scenarios. You tell me what is the likelihood that they occur in this next episode, season finale. Dragon on dragon dogfighting, so to speak.
Yes, I think that could happen. I hope it happens.
Yeah. Alicent or Otto die?
I don't see either of them dying.
Aemond kills Aegon.
I definitely don't see that happening now.
Aegon kills Aemond.
I definitely don't see that happening either. I don't think he could if he wanted to.
One of those two brothers dies somehow.
Too early for a shocking family death.
Someone's got to die this episode, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it could be one of Rhaenyra's bastard children.
Okay.
I think it could be one of the dragons that... It could also be that one of the dragons die.
Yep.
One or more of the dragons. And maybe it's one of Rhaenyra's dragons.
Yep.
Who knows? We also know, by the way, because of this war, we also know that at some point Alicent is going to instruct, or maybe Alicent's descendants is going to instruct the use of that. Remember that Greek fire that we saw in Game of Thrones? Yeah. Where they had stacked the entire place with all that special green fire?
Yes.
I think this is going to be this war is going to be the cause for it.
I mean, it was really interesting when we got to Game of Thrones. You know, when we first saw that Daenerys had her 3 dragons, we thought that they were invincible at first, right? And then Cersei is like, hey, come up with a system. And they basically created like this air defense, like harpoon
catapults.
system, right?
Yep.
And they were successful in killing one.
No, I don't think they died in that. Because she...
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Because she only had one at the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the
series.
One
was taken by the White Walker's king.
Yeah, he turned him into a blue dragon or whatever it was. The ice dragon.
And I thought that Cersei was able to shoot down one of them.
Oh, maybe. I don't remember now, but maybe. Because you're absolutely right. She only ends up with the red dragon or whatever it was at the end of the season. And we don't even know what happens to it now.
So, I mean, actually, that's a very good point, which is what happens at the end of Game of Thrones? Season 8 was so disappointing. We never even got to ask.
We know, and we didn't even want to at that point, right? Because that last couple episodes was such a downer.
Yeah, I mean that's a separate episode we should probably have, which is what happens next on Game of Thrones. Because I agree, like the last 2 or 3 episodes were like super disappointing, right?
Yeah. In any case, my feeling is that it is less likely that we will see a main character's death. I don't not see it happening. I just think the odds are very low. But to your point, we do need to see someone important die because that's kind of the show's MO. And so far, except for Viserys, who's died of quote-unquote natural causes, there hasn't really been a death, right? Season 1 basically of Game of Thrones ended with Ned Stark being decapitated.
Yeah.
And that was the big shock of that season. So what is it going to be for here? We don't know yet.
What about Rhaenys? I mean, for me, she's such I like her a lot as a character, but I have to say she's really a loose end. Either she has to create her own third faction, or if she's going to side with Rhaenyra, what's the point of having her any longer, you know?
I don't know about that. I actually see her as a power player that everyone may be underestimating, because at this point, so she now controls the most powerful navy, which is no small feat.
Yeah.
She's also got a dragon, and she's also got her place in Driftwood, which is not easy to assault, right? It's a ship ride away. It's not, her position of power is more and more solidified than ever before. So in that regard, she becomes a valuable ally to whoever can get them. And I think based on what we've seen in this episode, I think she's not on Alicent's side. That doesn't mean to say she's on Rhaenyra's side. I still think of her as kind of being like loosely independent.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in terms of the name, her kids or her grandkids are still in line to be king, at least in terms of the name, which we know means nothing to her, but still means a lot to Corlys. And Corlys is still he's not dead. He's out, but he's not dead.
Yeah, I guess that last scene with Rhaenys, I thought just really was unsettling to me, because I thought that could have been, if the way that really would have happened in real life, something would have happened, you know? She wouldn't have just taken the dragon and roared and flown off. She either would have, I don't know, that last scene really didn't sit right with me.
I get it, because it was so ambiguous and it leaves so many questions in the air. The way I'm looking at it right now is that at worst case scenario, Rhaenys has made a statement to the king and to the kingdom.
I'm not on your side, yeah.
I'm definitely not on your side. So don't you dare come after me. And you know how I can prove that? I just spared your life when I could have killed you all. That's how powerful I am. So that is not an insignificant statement, right? And because it was so public that she spared them.
Yeah.
They were literally within inches of their death. And she prevented that from happening, because she didn't allow it to happen. So that's a great power play as a neutral/independent person at this stage.
Do you think that a dragon would kill another dragon? Like, do you think that you can make the dragons fight each other?
I definitely think so. They're animals at the end of the day.
I mean, are we going to see a scene where the dragons start like biting each other and,
I think I think you were absolutely right. I think it's more likely that we're going to see Rhaenyra flying in the air and Daemon flying in the air versus like Aegon or Aemon's dragon. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to just do like these jets of flame and these fireballs and fire blasts. It's going to singe the wings very badly and cause the dragon to plummet a couple 100 feet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Doing it immense damage. I don't see them. And again, we could, of course, see them fighting like, Jurassic Park style, which is, biting each other. Yeah. But I feel like that would be such a, not a cop-out, but I feel like that would be anticlimactic given that these are flying creatures.
Yeah.
Because that you're right. That would be nothing like, we've seen all of that in Jurassic Park. If they just bite each other and circle each other and kind of snipe at each other, I'm sorry, but we've seen that. That's nothing special.
I guess I kind of want to keep the dragons out of this. Like, I don't really want to see the scene where there's like 4 dragons against 2 dragons and these dragons kill the other dragons. I don't want to see like Top Gun, basically. Like,
yeah.
I really don't. I don't want to see a dogfight, and I don't want to see, who is the most powerful dragon. I mean, I guess I'm kind of hoping that there's some civility among the dragons or even the dragon riders. And I'm kind of hoping that dragons like killing, like smashing the eggs, I think is one thing. I think that's like stealing the eggs and smashing the eggs is one thing. But I'm kind of hoping that the dragons more die like of old age or disease, or there's like some poison or something a little bit more nefarious. And it's not just because, we turned the dragons on each other, and only one survived and like we've just got the last one. That just seems like super.
Yeah, but that could be true, right? That's something I could see
true.
Larys. I could see Larys definitely spearheading that, right? We can definitely see Larys going to like the chemists of the Red Keep and being like, let's fabricate some kind of poison.
Yeah.
And let's, sneak into Driftwood, sneak into Dragonstone. Let's, eliminate that. That's great. I
think that's a very interesting plot line, actually.
I think that's also a great counter to, for example, in episode 1, one of the episodes we see Rhaenyra use the dragon to like kill an entire battalion of army guys.
Yeah.
And then, they're just losing men left, right, and center. Mm-hmm. And then Alicent says, hey, we got to come up with a solution. And Larys is like, well, I've been working on something. And they come up with these like poison tipped arrows or, they come up with these like hand grenade things where they do like a stealth mission to go into Dragonstone and they destroy the entire keep where the dragons are kept.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's fantastic, actually.
I agree with you. The poison tipped arrow, I think, is a nice idea. Yeah, I mean, I just don't want this to be it's like you said, I don't want this to turn into Jurassic Park where you just see like 2 dragons sniping at each other, biting each other, taking like pieces of flesh from each other, breathing fire on each other. I mean, maybe if that's done well, it could be okay. But again, we're not really tuning into Jurassic Park. We're turning into a political drama, right?
Yeah. Which happens to have dragons in it. But having said that, we definitely want to see some dragon action because you've kind of spent all of Game of Thrones mythologizing how powerful these dragons are.
Yeah.
And how valuable they are on the field of battle. And you've kind of showed throughout the entire first season how they're being cultivated and taken care of by the Targaryens. It would be kind of like a waste, right? To not use them in battle somewhere. And we saw a little bit of that with the Driftwood King episode where Daemon gets saved at the last second.
I mean, to be honest, at this point, if that's the way that we look at this, and I think that's right, we almost need that dragon fight scene to happen now where they wipe each other out. I mean,
or make them seem less invulnerable than they are.
Yeah,
right.
Because you're right. Because now, basically, even if you keep Rhaenyra out of it, she's like, "Hey, I just want my pet. I'm just doing my own thing. I'm in Driftwood. I'm solo." Right?
Yeah.
Daemon and Rhaenyra if they want any chance to get back on the throne, it can only be done by force, right? And that means the only thing that they could do is they should be taking their dragons, riding to King's Landing, and they should just
waste to the entire place.
To the castle, right? They should just be like taking the claws and pulling the roof off and blowing fire into everybody. Absolutely. And the only way to defend that is that Aegon and Aemond need to get on their dragons and fight back.
I mean, the way I would see that is like Daemon going, or either actually the way I could see that happening would be like Rhaenyra storming the castle with her dragon and almost using that as a distraction while Daemon uses his dragon to go where the dragons are kept in the pit.
Yeah.
And either freeing them, killing them, or stealing all the eggs from them.
Yeah.
Obviously, Aegon and Aemond immediately run to their dragons, and then they have a 2-on-1 dragon v Uncle Dragon battle.
Yeah.
Daemon gets away by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah.
But then all the dragons are kind of taken out of it, and basically, or maybe effectively what happens is Rhaenyra is the only one with a battle-hardened dragon left in the game. Something like that. You know, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think that what's happened is we have seen a lot of swordplay action.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen any dragon action. Or
I agree. It needs to happen now.
Yes.
Yeah. My point is it needs to happen now. If you've got your weapon of mass destruction, it needs to be brought out now. Because if Daemon and Rhaena say, well, like, let's just see if we can have a bunch of like one-on-one meetings with the houses, and if we can like change their mind. Like there's no going back except by force right now, right?
Yeah, there's diplomacy happens later. At this point, they should really be showing like it should be a show of force.
Yeah.
So that when they can go to the other houses for the diplomatic efforts, they'll be like, well, we just laid waste to all of King's Landing. Are you with us or against us?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like diplomacy with a gun to your head, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they have to do that. Like, and again, I think we are both probably analyzing this as if like, if this were the real world and you were were in that situation, what would we do? I think that's probably the most efficient path to getting power back.
I mean, I guess it's the only choice right now. I don't see them. I mean, I guess the alternative is that Daemon and Rhaenyra say, you know what? This really
I never
sucked.
really wanted it.
Yeah, I'm going to say it like in a way that's not their words, but this really sucks. You know, Alicent's such a bitch. This is nonsense. This is bullshit. But we're pretty happy here in Dragonstone. Let's just go on with it. And then it's their kids who are like, man, mom and dad really like wimped out. They should have done something when we're older. You know, when there's a jump forward in a next season, we're going to do something about it.
By the way, that is also brilliant. Yeah. This could also just be a great fake out, which is like they siege King's Landing and go back and say, hey, we don't want power, but don't mess with us either.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Daemon was restless. He doesn't really want to sit still on a throne. So let him just do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah.
And Rhaenyra was like, I kind of want to be queen, but I kind of don't want to be queen. She's been really flip-flopping the entire season about it.
Yeah.
And then I actually think that's an even better idea, because then what happens is Alicent is happy because she gets her kids to be on the throne.
Yeah.
And then immediately we set up for the next time jump, which is the kids saying, Rhaenyra, Mom, you failed me. I wanted to be king. It's my birthright. Yeah. Even though, of course, birthright is the exact opposite or wrong word for this case. By all rights, it should be me on the throne. And then you start to see a little bit of edge in the two boys that Rhaenyra has, or the three boys, because frankly speaking...
Or the two girls.
Because frankly speaking, the reality is that Rhaenyra's three bastard boys, all of them right now are coming off as like soft ninnies.
Yeah.
They seem really, you know, and I it's probably politically incorrect, but I don't care. They're not battle hardened whatsoever. they're not capable warriors. And I think in this kind of landscape, to be a good king, you need to be a capable warrior.
I agree. I mean, I kind of like how that plays out as well. And maybe if Rhaenyra is going to be involved, I kind of feel like she's going to somehow like divide the kids and be like, hey, I want it to be Bela, or what's the other one? Rhaena. And she wants it to be, what was that other word? Lana, right? She wants it to be Lana's 2 daughters.
Yeah.
Right? Lana and Daemon. And she says to Daemon, hey, Daemon, like, I want it to be your 2 daughters. If it's not going to be me, I want it to be your 2 daughters.
Yeah.
I don't want Jacaerys or Larry's or, Strong's kids. Like, put your 2 daughters there, right? Yeah. And that causes a rift with Rhaenyra, who says, no.
Or at least with the kids. Or at least with the kids, right? Because, I mean, ultimately, the reality is that
we need a
there's
three-way.
Now 3 fractions. There's 3 factions in Rhaenyra's family. In Rhaenyra's family, there's 3 factions, right? There's her bastard children with Strong.
Yeah.
There's Daemon and Laena's kids. Yeah. And then you have Daemon's and Rhaenyra's kids. So you have 3 separate factions. And by the way, that's a great way, because what can happen is Aemond and Aegon can use that to break up the family and be like, hey, Daemon and Rhaenyra's kids, you're the only ones we recognize. We don't recognize any of the others. So why don't you kind of like infiltrate them, kill your brothers for us, kill your sisters for us. And we'll make sure that you get, I don't know, whatever you get.
I mean, maybe if you're looking at where the loyalties lie, okay, you've got Alicent as now like the widowed mom, right? Aegon is taking a throne, and if Aemond remains consistent, he's like, hey, I'm the younger brother playing the Daemon role where I'm always going to defend you, right?
Yeah.
And then Helena, of course, is married to Aegon. And then in the other side, Rhaenys is kind of like, yeah, I kind of want to be king, queen. And Daemon's like, you know what? Maybe it should probably be me. And Rhaenyra's like, yeah, it should probably be me. And they've got 3 separate sets of kids, 2 sets who are married to each other. And it's that side of the family tree that if they could get their crap together, they'd probably be stronger and could take the throne, but they're just not aligned. And it's their internal divisions that are the problem.
I still think that one of Alicent's kids has to go. And I still think that what's going to happen is that it's Aemond. And Aegon has to kind of step up and clean up his act.
I have to say, he really, if you saw, I mean, at the end of that episode.
Yes, at the very end, he looked better.
It's like they splashed some cold water on his face. He got a haircut. And
he had the proper old school throne on his head that was from the original Targaryen line.
And you could see like he was getting into it. He raised the Valyrian steel sword up. He was saying the right things. Like, you could see that he was like, okay, like, I didn't want to be king, but now I understand, like, the gravity's kind of hit me. Maybe that was his wake-up call.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
Aemond is so compelling.
Oh, yeah.
It would be a shame to get rid of him. He took the biggest dragon. He's a badass. He's so compelling that it would be really unfortunate to get rid of him.
I agree on a story as like a viewer, but I think in terms of like in the storyline itself, internally, I think the reality is that because he is more of a fighter than he is a diplomat, so I don't ever see him really being on the throne, one way or another.
Yeah. That, I have to say, anything within those 2, if you could pick out 4 scenarios, one kills the other kills the other. One is...
Yeah, it's compelling.
Like,
it's compelling.
Any of those storylines, I feel like, have a 50% chance.
Yeah, and not just that. I would be happy with... Any of the scenarios we've posited today, I would be quite pleased to see that.
I agree.
I don't know if we're right, if we're wrong. Generally speaking, our hit rate, I think, is around 50% with this. Generally speaking, we usually call it maybe about half the time we call it right. In this case, even if we get it wrong, there are so many angles here that I don't see a not compelling way forward, one way or another.
All right. Let's make a very big guess.
Okay.
Or like prediction, let's say. We're going to have one more episode this season. Then season 2 is going to start, right?
Yeah.
How far forward are we going to jump at the beginning of season 2?
Assuming war breaks out officially at the end of episode 10 or by the end of episode 10.
Yeah.
I imagine that it's going to be a time jump and the kids are going to be older, all of them. You don't have to change any of the actors except for maybe some of Rhaenyra's kids. What happens at that point is it's probably going to be like a 1-year time jump and the entire land is absolutely ravaged. And we probably learned that, Daemon has been able to secure forces on his side because he's also got Rhaenys and Driftwood fighting with them. We've got, in terms of, I think it'll be a relatively even battle. That's my feel. I don't know. I think it would be kind of a slog to watch through the war from the beginning through the end. I think we jump at least a year into the war. It's
a lot of time jumps, huh?
I mean, it was my problem with this season is it was moving at such a breakneck pace, and which is not a bad thing, by the way, but the time jumps was very disconcerting.
Yeah. I would strongly recommend, if you have the time, to watch season 1 of Game of Thrones. It was so useful to me to put in perspective the Targaryen dynasty. And also, again, show just the parallels between how badly Ned Stark dealt with the succession of, Robert Baratheon, to where he was now. That could have been a very, very smooth transition, and it was not. Just like Alicent is kind of playing the role of of Cersei, basically, right? Mm-hmm, she's basically taken, in some ways not, but she's basically said, look, I'm installing my son and I'm going to just cut the head off of any opposition. No matter what, I'm going to get rid of all the opposition. And Joffrey, if you recall also, went out and he killed all of Robert Baratheon's bastard children.
All the bastards except for the one that got, that ran away, or was taken away secretly.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, I found that there were a lot of parallels, but I mean, I didn't truly appreciate Game of Thrones when I was watching it. I mean, it took me some time to get into it and to understand, the gravity of everything. And now I understand, how relevant the Targaryen dynasty was, right? And how close they were to kind of cutting off Daenerys, that could have been totally ended. That Targaryen family could have been completely ended, right? But wasn't it Varys who was in charge of keeping them safe? Someone had found them from Westeros and was trying to poison them at the wedding or something like that. There's a lot of. I'm not entirely sure how it, what happened behind the scenes, but yes. They tried to poison Daenerys. And then it was, remember, she had that one dude, who was always guiding her, right? I can't remember his name. And he's the guy who kind of said, hey, don't drink that wine. That's probably bad, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah, the one who fell in love with her. Yeah. And then she kicks him out, but he gets back. Yeah.
Yes. So, it's not clear if he knew about this and he had a change of heart, or if he didn't go along with a plan, or what the deal was. But again, they were very close to, ending that dynasty. And that would have been a storyline totally ended, right? And everything would have continued, with the Lannisters then ruling. But I don't know. If you've got the time, I'd watch maybe not the whole season 1, but a few of those episodes, because it really, even though it was the first series before House of the Dragon, it really put a lot of things in perspective for me watching it a second time. And it ages very, very well. Just like you told me once that Lord of the Rings ages well. Again, this is 15 years old. And since it's a little bit of a period piece, it ages, I thought, extraordinarily well. I didn't know that I was watching something so old. It could have been, modern. I guess we're excited for the season finale. We'll have another breakdown next week.
Incredibly excited for the season finale. I think it's super, super exciting. I really like that this show is giving us. I don't even know how to describe it. Honestly, I really don't. It's
fulfilling.
It's
really fulfilling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's giving us so many different options and ideas as to where it could be going. Like, it's keeping me on my toes, which is a nice change of pace that it's doing that.
I mean, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but it's worth repeating. One of the things that we criticized about Rings of Power was that there was really no optionality, that it was a story. The story was spoon-fed to us. At no point was there really like a lot of questions or room for deviation. Any question marks were, who is this person? But in terms of like overall strategy, there was never any strategy questions. And I think the reason that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon are so compelling is that they're not just dramas, but they're dramas where there's always multiple different storylines interwoven, and you really don't know what's going to happen next, that any scenario is equally likely as the next. And I think that's why they're so captivating. That's my 2 cents.
No, and it's a good 2 cents at that. It's really good. Actually, I think that's an absolutely 100% correct take on that.
So we'll find out next week.
We will. So,
should we do an emergency episode after the season finale?
Actually, we may as well. So
putting you on the spot. Yeah.
At the time of recording, as I'm sure most people are aware, the finale of the season was leaked online, happened a lot during the during season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
As viewers and as fans of the show, we cannot recommend that you watch a pirated or, illegally obtained copy. You want to watch this show as it was meant to be seen, in 4K, in high def, whatever you can.
Yeah.
Properly. Don't watch a crappy stream on somewhere. Watch the real deal. Make sure you get it, because especially for this episode, there's going to be a lot coming out. You're going to want to be able to understand exactly what's going on screen.
Well said, Pete. Well said. Yeah, let's do an emergency episode after we watch this on Sunday. Maybe we do it Monday or Tuesday or something.
It officially comes out late tonight in London time, and even later tonight, Dubai time. Yeah. So probably sometime tomorrow on Monday, Ethan and I will sit down and be able to watch it, and then we can record anytime.
Okay. Stay tuned for that.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. This was really good.
Pete, my favorite hour actually, it's my second favorite hour. My favorite hour is watching House of the Dragon. My second favorite hour is talking about it with Pete. Happy to do this with you, buddy. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you in a few days with our thoughts on the finale.
Thank you. And if you guys have any predictions, by the time it comes out, the season finale will be over. But if you have any predictions, or if you had any predictions, let us know in the comments below. Tweet at us at FNS Podcast, or send us an email, aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com. We will share your theories online. We will tell you what we think of your theories, why we agree with you or why we disagree with you. But we want to hear from you. This is, I would say, of the last couple months, if not the year, this is probably the most exciting time on TV, comparable, if not surpassing, For All Mankind's finale.
Whoa. Now you know that Pete is serious. He's comparing it to For All Mankind, which is making me want to talk about that. Very good comparison.
Wonderful. All right, so thanks, everyone, and definitely reach out to us. Thanks, Ethan.
Happy day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute